Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Southeast Salon. My name is Jason Page. I'm the founder of Southeast Salon. What we do is we're a platform for conversations about Southeast London. I know you can tell from my Lewisham accent that I'm born and bred in Lewisham, Southeast London. The truth is I've been here for about 16 years and I consider myself lucky to have landed here from Brooklyn most recently 16 years ago. And people say, what's Southeast London like? What's London like? I say, Southeast London is Brooklyn 10 years ago. So everything that's happening now, all the people that you see, all the things that you see, it's exactly the same, except maybe the accents. One of the things that I wanted to say to you all before I introduce our guest is just that this is the 14th Salon that I've done. If you want to follow us and you want to be a part of our future conversations, I've got some QR codes around. And the next event that I'm going to be having is about Deptford Docks. If anybody knows about the history of Deptford Docks, or a project that's called Convoy's Wharf. That's probably the last time I'll mention those two words in this room. Please come to that event. This is the 14th Salon that we've done, and these conversations the sole purpose of these conversations is to raise awareness about people, organizations, topics that affect the people of Southeast London. And today, this event is personal to me because I had an experience where I was interacting with this piece of artwork called Sanctuary Cafe, that was created by David Johnson, who sat here. And has anybody seen this artwork before? Okay. As you know, this artwork was sat in the Lewisham Shopping Centre for many months. And my day job is at the Migration Museum, which is right down the hall. And every day I would see people interact with this piece in a very, very sincere and intimate and wonderful and incredibly beautiful way. Whether it was builders that would come by and pat Stella on the head, or people that know Stella that would walk by and they would be amazed and be like, oh my God, that's Stella. Or children that were just totally in awe of this life-size piece of artwork that looks just like the woman that we know. And it wasn't until I was having a conversation with Stella here in the shopping center, and while we're talking, of course, people are walking by and looking at the artwork and looking at Stella and looking at the artwork and looking at Stella, and they realize that it's the same person, exactly. And she told me a little bit about her story, which we will get into, but she told me the connection that she had with several events that have happened in Lewisham. And it just struck me that I wanted to bring people together for an opportunity to talk about some of those experiences, some of those memories that we'll get into. But it also struck me that there's no legacy for this artwork as well. So it was sort of put out to pasture in the Lewisham Shopping Centre, which I felt was not very fair after the Borough of Culture. So it was commissioned by the Council for the Borough of Culture. Has anybody heard of the Borough of Culture? Okay, that's surprising, that's wonderful, wonderful surprise. And after Borough of Culture, it came to the Lewisham Shopping Centre, which is great. Being in the Migration Museum, everybody come in and say, oh my gosh, your artwork is great, you guys have done a great job. And I'd say, no, it's not the Migration Museum. But I could understand how people would make that mistake because it sat out right out in front of our unit. And so what I wanted to do is make those connections for people and open up the dialogue and put this down and record this for posterity, because as far as I'm concerned, I am not from Lewisham, but I've been here long enough to know that this is a very special place. And as Lewisham changes, these stories are very important. And it is up to us to preserve those stories, and what I'm trying to do is to make that link and do the best I can with that. Does that sound okay? Okay, thank you very much. So what I'd like to do is to introduce our guest, starting from my left, Mr. Richard Simpson of Cummin Up, and thank you very much. And the New Crossfire Foundation, which he will explain. To Richard's left is David Johnson, who is the artist that created this artwork. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Sister Stella Headley, who is the muse of the artwork, who co-founded or founded Rastafari Movement UK. And Queen Irena Sebou, forgive me, who is a campaigner for mental health, positive mental health in the borough, as well as putting up roots all over the world, which you will get into as well, and a writer and an author. So what I'd like to do is to basically have each one of these folks give a little bit of words about what they do. I think you've got mics in front of you, but if you prefer, I can give you this one, and we'll start with you, Richard. Yeah? Thank you.
All right, if you insist. Right, well, my, if you like, claim to fame in the borough as it stands is that I'm the owner of Cummin Up Caribbean Takeaway Caterers Restaurant, and we've had a series of, we've had many outlets over the years. Quick potted history. 1991 was New Cross Gate. That's where that's the, if you like, the flagship. And that site has blessed my family so much in that the after hours brand now, which you might be familiar with, which has 4 outlets across the borough, as well as being in Lambeth. That's my daughter. That's the eldest. And then we've also got an outlet, or we had an outlet, let me say, in Lewisham High Street. But 1991 was George Lane. No, 1991 was New Cross. 93 was George Lane, just off the High Street. At the beginning of 94 was Sydenham, Lower Sydenham. 96 was Greenwich. No, 96 was Forest Hill. Closely followed the following year by Greenwich. And then came, let's get back. Then bought the building on Lewisham High Street. So the George Lane became Lewisham High Street. That was just in the year 2000. And at the same time was opening the little one in Forest Hill, that some of you might know. And then it went very quiet for a number of years. And 2011, we opened Brighton. But in the meantime, we established roots in Grenada. So 2012, there's a Coming Up in Grenada. And so it moved on. And more recent time, we've just established ourselves in the Gambia as well, in West Africa. Right, so that's the Coming Up story. Now, as far as Lewisham goes, I was born in Lewisham Hospital and went to Holbeach School and also went to Catford Boys. So I know quite a bit about Lewisham. In fact, prior to this, the shopping centres we now know it being built with Lewisham Odeon up there, with the Duke of Welling in the pub in the corner, with the Studio 6 and 7 on the other side. But this picture here, the first one, I laughed because my parents' home was opposite Ladywell running track. And I remember, and I believe that's the Craggy, what we call the Craggy. I think the posh name was the River, was it where this centre gets its name? The Riverdale? The river that runs all around. I think it's the river. Ravensbourne, sorry, that was it. Yeah, forgive me. But to me, it was a Craggy, right? It was a Craggy, as simple as that. So we'd go and be picking blackberries and the rest in the summer down during the summer on the banks. And this is when I was, it was just about 70, wasn't it? I think I was about 6 or 7 when the banks burst, or they overcame the banks. And then they had all the wooden bridges in the park. And this was our stomping ground. Everything was about the park. And so I remember this happening. And there was some sandbanks at our front door. And it came up to the step and didn't enter. So we were very fortunate. And I just remember the Ladywell Park and the running track just being a sea. Just water, river. So that definitely brought back a memory. But our house was saved. So that was good. So that's it. I'll be talking forever if I... Well, the New Cross fire, should I mention that quickly? Now, yeah, all right, just to say that along with Patricia, who's sitting over there in the blue, and another director, our 30th birthday, I commissioned a piece in New Cross on the shop, a mural, which is about 3.5 meters high. You may have seen it, like a bust. And that was in memory of a friend of mine who I lost in the New Cross fire, and that was Clinton Powell. And not many people knew that there was a connection, but he and I went to Holbeach School as our primary school, and he was still a single parent and didn't have a television. He used to watch television in my house, and obviously coming from school, Mum would cook and do the necessary until he was big. And this went on. And even if I mention the fire now, the first thing Mum would say is Lard Glenton, and that was it. So that was our connection, and it almost lied dormant. And then when we celebrated our 30th year in 2021, I thought, it just came to me, what can we do? Then I realized it, New Cross fire. So the piece is actually known as 87, which is 87 properties away from where the fire took place. That piece is named 87. So that's what we did. And in doing that, long story short, I was invited to a group about the legacy of the fire. And I said, well, very interested, but I'm not interested in the whodunit aspect of it. I think that our parents were economic migrants, essentially, and just had to feed us and shelter us and the rest. And I didn't feel that they had, they weren't bold enough to speak to power, if you like. And I think now this is our last opportunity as people who lived through that, who are a little more, well, much more empowered, and who can project things from the position of hurt and pain and the rest. And this is the last opportunity, I believe, that we can now create something very, very positive, where ultimately we'll be dealing with trauma of all types, and even if it comes to a one-to-one situation, that's the levels at which we're projecting ourselves. So we're called the New Cross Fire Foundation. And as well as all of that, obviously, to my mind, it's obvious, if you want to impact something, you have to get them as children. And that's what Patricia does. So Patricia's Director of Education. So we're making up, or Patricia is making up modules for all the year groups throughout the schools. And so that's this. So New Cross Fire Foundation, the website is up. Please connect with us, but we won't be launching until next year, and then we'll get the information out. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Richard. If I may, I'm going to skip over David really quickly and go to Sister Stella. David, can you hand your microphone to Sister Stella, please? And I'd like to introduce Sister Stella Headley, founder of Rastafari Movement UK. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I'm Sister Stella Headley. I was born in Sydenham, in a council house in Sydenham, 1965. And 5 sisters all went to Sydenham Girls' School. And one poignant thing about Sydenham Girls' School was in 1981, the year that I left. And it was also the year of that tragedy in New Cross. I went to the party, but I was a bit like claustrophobic, so I didn't go in. I wanted to go home, and I went home. And after, I'm skipping a lot of it because I don't want to get too emotional, but when we went back to school, on the day of in March, on the day of action, we had an assembly and we were told not to leave the school premises. And I kept saying to my friends, I'm going on the march, because my cousin passed away in that fire. And I said, who's coming? And after the assembly, everybody went back to their classrooms. And I was the only person walking towards this gate. And so it felt like it was miles. And I walked towards these big, like, cast iron gates, and there was a teacher there, and he said to me, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to the march. And he said to me, I can't let you out. And I said, yeah, I know, you can't let me out. So how are you going to get out? So I said, I'm climbing over the gate. And so I did. I climbed over the gate and walked towards Forest Hill, where the bus terminals used to be, and got the 171. Got off at the Marquis by Goldsmiths University. And that's when I saw, like, just a barrier of people, just people. And I just felt like I was protected by everybody. I was 15 at the time, and we went on that march, and people spat on us, and they threw chairs out the window, and they refused to let us go to the toilet. So we marched from here to Blackfriars. And I started to collect everything, every newspaper clipping. I've got this big collection still at home of every single newspaper clipping. And one of the things that I noticed was that the national newspapers painted us all in a negative way. They put it's a black day on Blackfriars and blacks run riot. And the local newspapers, the South London Press and the Mercury, on their headline, it was something like a day of dignity for local people, and it just made me realize that, local is so, it means so much to me. Local is everything, being part of your local community, and years later, I had this conversation with Richard, and I said to Richard that, you know, although it was 40 odd years ago, none of us children received any therapy or counselling. You know, I went to 12 funerals. You know, there was so much trauma in our community that has been carried from decade to decade, generation to generation. And, you know, nobody had acknowledged the trauma that people went through, young children. We were children. You know, the victims, the families, the school friends, everybody. Nobody offered any form of therapy or counselling or anything to get over that. And I know for a fact that people of my age, there are people of my age that may have been there or experienced something to do with that have had mental health since then, that have had things go wrong in their lives. And so, you know, that's one of my experiences of being in Lewisham, being born and grown in Lewisham. Another is the fact that along that journey, that being on that march awakened me to wanting justice and truth and rights for people, and I guess I became a community activist at that point. You know, I was made aware of some of the people that were fighting for justice, and my sisters were Rastafari, and I started to embrace Rastafari. And you know, years later, I became part of an organisation who we organised the reparation march to Parliament in 2014, which was the beginning of the Rastafari Movement UK. And out of the Rastafari Movement UK, we had various members during the pandemic that came to us to say that they're struggling. They've disengaged from mainstream services because of all of the inequalities and the injustice that they experienced for decades and decades. But during the pandemic, during lockdown, they came and said that, you know, what can we do? We need some help with food. So we established RMUK, Rastafari Movement UK, Food and Wellbeing. And so we started off with 8 households that needed support. And we specialised in cultural foods because the prices went up so much. And now we have on our books 260-something households across Lewisham, Lambeth and Southwark. We have a magnificent team of volunteers. Please put your hands up if you volunteer for RMUK Wellbeing. And we deliver every week. We work out our routes, and our members, they pay £4 every 2 weeks. And for that, we make sure that they have a bag of fresh fruit and veg, including cultural foods, and another bag full of other food and grocery items. And then our volunteers deliver to people's doors. It's usually the people that are very vulnerable, in need of support, limited mobility, no income, low income, no recourse to public funds. And then when they get there, they deliver the groceries, but they also do doorstep befriending. They find out what else a person needs, because we recognise that the food is just the surface of what's gone wrong or the issues or the concerns. So we find out what else they need, and then we signpost and we connect them to the relevant places. And then within the organisation, at my heart is the development of our volunteers. And so I want to see our volunteers and people that come into contact with us and people that are associated with us become community activists and community leaders in this borough, which I think is very important for this borough. And I think that's it. Do you want me to say anything else?
Well, I've got questions for you, but how about if we... Thank you very much, Sister Stella. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Queen Irena, who we got a chance to speak the other day on the phone, but I'd love for you to tell a little bit about your story, your work as a campaigner in the borough.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Queen Irena Sebou. I started off with the name of Shirley Blackwood. That is my first original name. Daughter of my parents that came from the Caribbean in the 50s and migrated here. One of 11 children. I'm in between two sets of twins. Okay, that's a big story already. Yes, so quite a lot of different experiences to tell you, but I'll narrow it down. My mother passed in 1995 and she was quite unwell. But my father was unwell first and she was actually his carer. So there was a lot of sickness going on in the family. And I have one brother, he's the very last one born. He was suffering from mental health issues. So there was quite a lot of talk around the community, things going on in the family. But even though that was so, my family was very important and people used to come to get advice from my father, interesting enough, and borrow money from him. So I realized that my family was quite well off. Yeah. Anyway, manners and everything, we stuck to all the manners. Going to school and coming back from school, we knew that within the black community there was a certain code of behavior that you didn't misbehave on the bus, you didn't misbehave on the street, because if you did, somebody in the community would make your parents aware of that. I mean, who? They did. So when you got home, I hear say, when you was on the bus, it's just incredible. So we made sure we behaved very well. Unlike today, the contrast is incredible. Whereas when we were on the bus traveling, there was no extra chatter, no messing about, no misbehaving. And I shake my head often when I'm on public transport because it's just so different. Anyway, code of behavior at home, we all had our chores, whether it's cleaning the skirting boards, the wall, the door frames, washing clothes by hand, all those different things. At the time, I and my sisters thought it was a bit too much, but I realized as I got older that these were fundamental things that we needed to understand when it comes to growing up and growing our children later on in life, because if you didn't know how to look after the place where you lived or your clothes and things like that, then you didn't have the fundamental upbringing, really. Yeah, so we were brought with that. As I got older, I went to Sydenham Girls as well, along with Stella, but I'm an older person. Born in 1962 in Lewisham Hospital, along with most of my siblings as well. Yes, I went to Sydenham Girls, and the great thing about going to Sydenham Girls is that most of Sydenham girls are actually in touch with each other, even to this day. I know hundreds of people that went to my school, and it's incredible. Any party, any death, any, whatever congregation goes on, there's always a large amount of us there, and it's so important to see each other, know that you're alive. It's so good to see someone that you went to school with and carry on that kind of friendship. When I left school, I went to Brixton College and studied there. I'd done nursery nursing qualification. And just at the end of that studying, there was the Brixton riots. But I actually remember the boys coming into college and saying that the police are really pulling us about, pushing us about, wanting to search us, pushing us against the wall. And all the girls were really afraid that something was going to happen. And of course it did, it blew, because it was just too much. We knew that the chatter that was going on, we're being harassed, we're being pushed around, we're being searched, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. And that was going around all the time, and eventually it blew up. So for me, that was my biggest kind of inclination of racism out on the streets, via the police and other officials. And it's quite a treacherous time when I think about it. Growing up in London, really, really difficult for the black community. I got into Rastafari and really saw that as the way forward for me, to understand myself and why it's so important to recognise that I am an African and my roots are from Africa, and that I've got to embrace my African self and spread the word and make sure the children that I have embrace their African self and learn as much as they can about their history and about the history within the UK as well. I'm a mother of 7. I have 6 boys and 1 girl, and a grandmother of 7. Yes, I know. I've got twins as well. It's not easy. It was not easy growing my children at all. In school, there was various different issues that they were facing that I had to keep on challenging. So what I ended up doing was being involved in the school. I was a governor at one point in one school and a governor in another. I went into schools and had an assembly with a couple of the schools. Lewisham Bridge was one of them. I had an assembly to talk about the history of Rastafari, and there I was with my 4 children at the time, the twins and the 2 older on both sides of the pushchair, pushing the pushchair, brought them all in, and it was the older 2 that was in the school. So we had the whole assembly, and I was talking about Rastafari and talking about Bob Marley and his legacy, and how I wrapped my hair and how I put on my clothes. And looked like hundreds of people in the hall, the teachers and the children. It was really, really enjoyable. So I thought, yeah, I like this. Yeah. So I really got involved in a term's worth of story reading. We were reading about the story about the Maroons in Jamaica and how they became Maroons, what their life was like, what kind of battles they faced with the English, Anyway, it was a chapter story. It was quite light-hearted as well, but it gave the children an understanding of how important it is to know the history, why fairness is important, a little history about war and injustice, but at the same time helping them to understand about culture. So at the end of each session, I put on the table like some bun and cheese or some coconut drops and things like that the children can actually take home with them, so they had something concrete that reminded them about the story that they listened to and the places that they imagined as well while they was listening. So that was those early days of working in the community. I went on to found the Liberty Development Foundation, which helped to put on community events in the Lewisham Borough. One of the places that we put an event was in, what was the place called? Over Catford Bridge. There's something going on. Oh, it slipped me. It's yes, Power League, that's it. Power League, we had quite a few events in Power League. And the biggest one that we done was a charity ball. We had a charity ball to raise money for the children that were victims from the Haiti earthquake. Children on the autistic spectrum, we raised some money for children in Lewisham on the autistic spectrum as well. That was quite a powerful charity ball. I also went on to support, because I have 2 children on the autistic spectrum that I've campaigned so much to get support for, which I didn't get in the Borough of Lewisham. So I decided to develop groups myself. So I worked with a group called Fun Physical. I started off as a chair. I said, well, that's easy enough. Yeah, I'll be the chair and what have you. But it turned out that group was actually not functioning in the way it should. I had to rewrite all the policies for the organisation. I had to train the volunteers, train the managers. It just went all over the place, and it was a full-time job for about 1.5 years that I had, and on a voluntary basis, by the way. We were providing support for children from the age of 4 to 16, physical activities. We had volunteers from St Dunstan's College and Helen College, it was, I think, from Dulwich. there was about 24 students that will come and support the children to climb beams, jump on the trampoline, things like that. That was quite powerful as well. And because the parents of the children with special needs needed something as well, I'd done a survey to find out what kind of support groups or workshops they might be interested in. So they came up with all these ideas, time management, business management. It was just incredible. So I decided to apply for some funding, and I was able to facilitate some of those workshops as well and get some other people, pay them to, so that the carers had some kind of connection with the group outside of their children just attending the activities. There's a lot more, so I'll leave it there for now, should I?
That's an incredible start. Thank you, Queen Irena. And we'll definitely come back, because I want to hear about the book. Next, I'd like to introduce artist David Johnson, who is, in his words, an unashamedly blind artist and the creator of Sanctuary Salon. Sanctuary Cafe. David, please talk about your work, how you came about this artwork, your inspiration in Stella, and some of the things that you do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason, for that intro. And thanks for inviting me here today and speaking as the only person in this room, I think, who wasn't born in Lewisham Hospital. In fact, I'm not actually from Lewisham, although I feel incredibly strong connections with this place. And I'm so honoured and sort of humbled to be here and to be part of this and sitting with these wonderful people. Particularly, I have to say, Stella, who I've got to know over the last 2 or 3 years, and who obviously is the subject of the sculpture. I'll just fill in a little bit of background on the sculpture. I'm a blind person. I'm a blind artist, and I as I say, as Jason said, I don't try and sort of sideline my blindness. My blindness is really part of my art. I don't try and overcome it to make art. I try and include my blindness in the art. So about 3 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, when Lewisham got the Lewisham Borough of Culture job, as it were, in the middle of the pandemic this was, I was approached to put myself forward for the Liberty part of that festival, which is the part of the festival which encourages disabled artists to contribute to the Borough of Culture. And myself and 9 other people put our work forward for inclusion in the festival, and luckily I was one of the ones chosen. So I wanted to, the idea was this idea of a sanctuary cafe, which is, the original idea was to construct a whole cafe, like 10 or 15 tables, and maybe 5 or 6 of them would have figures sitting at the tables, life-size 3D printed figures, like the one over there, is it? Yeah, of Stella. Unfortunately, the budget didn't go anywhere near allowing me to do this, and I ended up with 1 table and 1 incredible model for the table. But as I did my research in the local area, and I do, by the way, have strong links with Lewisham through my family. My brother, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, his name's Ian, or Johnny as his friends call him, he did the repair work to the statue over there, which needed some TLC. He's lived in Lewisham, Johnny has lived in Lewisham for 20 years, so I've been down to see him many a time, so I've got those connections with Lewisham, but nevertheless I needed to do research to find out about people that I might invite to be part of the sculpture. And without any hesitation, when I started doing my research, a local, I think it was a local authority person when I was introduced to, when I told them what I was looking for, which was a local person that many people know and would be recognised in the area if they bumped into the person in the street, so to speak. I said, I'm looking for someone like that to be my model. And this person said, look no further, it's got to be Stella Headley. So it's quite incredible that she was the one first named by this person, this local authority person. And luckily, Stella said yes when I asked her if she would do me the honour of being the model. And here we are with the actual sculpture. So the idea when the commission came along a couple of years ago, it was right in the middle of the whole Black Lives Matter terrible things that were going on in North America, and over here people were starting to tear down statues in places like Bristol, in London and Oxford. Statues were being ripped down, and in the name of equality for black lives, and in the memory of the horrendous slave trade that happened. And I wanted to sort of try and bring statuary and the art of statues back into the frame, and I wanted to try and create a statue that wasn't up on a plinth, that wasn't out of bounds, so to speak, that didn't put a kind of dodgy celebrity on a plinth. I wanted to bring the statue down to earth, literally, without crashing it and breaking it. And so I had this idea of a cafe where, the statue, the person could be actually sitting at a table and could be sat with and ate with and had a drink with and even spoken to. So hence the table where people can join Stella and with their friends and just have a chat, have a cup of coffee, even have something to eat, and engage sort of on the same level and at a level of equality with Stella or whoever the statue is. So that was the basic idea behind the statue. It came out of, as I say, the Black Lives Matter movement and the destruction of statues around the world. And so hopefully it's given statues a new lease of life. And it was so heartening to hear Jason and others saying how people in Lewisham have responded to the piece when it's been out in the mall here, and people just passing by and sitting with Stella and just having a chat and patting her on the head and just engaging with each other and with the statue, at the same time. To me, it's very moving and humbling to think that people have engaged with it in that very, very generous way, and it brings art sort of down to earth, and it brings I suppose art to the people in a way, and breaks down barriers. And speaking as a blind and disabled person, I'm very keen on art being accessible to as many people as possible. So much art, contemporary art and old art, is now shoved into these posh galleries and museums, which are, on the one level okay, but they are quite exclusive and excluding, particularly to blind and disabled peoples. And there are movements afoot to improve that situation. I've been to many an event that's designed to invite disabled and blind people into galleries and museums to engage with art, but it's a very small area of improvement, and there's a lot of work to be done. And one of the things I do at the moment is I've gone back to college as an old man to study for doing some research into what I call blind aesthetics, which is trying to tackle some of the barriers that are there between disabled people, particularly blind people, and art making, and this piece is kind of part of that part of that project. So I can carry on with this for ages, but perhaps that's enough.
David, thank you. Thank you very much, David. I'd like to open it up to you guys for questions, but if I may, I just wanted to ask a few questions of you guys just to kind of get the conversation going a little bit. I'll start with you, Sister Stella. Sometimes we talk about giving people their flowers while they're here, and I by no means want to make any type of prescription. This is that's a sort of a lead-in for the question. We're all going to be here for a very long time, but I want to know how it feels for you when you walk into the shopping center or the Albany or wherever the artwork has been, and you see the artwork or how people coming up to you, what does that feel like to have this piece, this life-size piece in your likeness, and what type of response have you gotten, and how does that feel, in terms of, especially in terms of the work that you've done?
Well, I think, first of all, I feel humbled that David would do this piece on me. And when I first saw it, I mean, I didn't know where it was going to be, and I actually came out of one of the shops just out there, and I just almost walked into myself. Yeah, and then I just went home. I just went home, and then I tried to avoid like the shopping centre, but then this is where I come. This is where I do my shopping and things. So there's times when I walked past, and there was I struck up some relationships. You know, there was a homeless couple that used to sit there all the time. And they didn't know it was me, but she used to say to me, "Oh, this is Stella, and Stella helps the homeless." Yeah, she told me everything, but she told me about me. And so I find that sometimes like people tell me about me, and for me it was like it does when we went to do the printing. Scan, yeah. And, we were talking about how I was going to pose and I wanted to put my hand by my heart because that's me, that's how I feel, and that's how I feel about my people and my community and all the work that I do. And so, it kind of, David allowed me to just sit and be natural. And so when I see it or when people see it, it just... I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that there was a lady that was there with her daughter, and her daughter said to her, "Oh, this is really nice. It's a shame. When did she die?" And her mum said, like, "Is that lady standing there?" It's like, so it's just all different types of things. That even a lady said to me that she was coming from a meeting and she was really nervous about the meeting. And she said she sat there with the statue for 20 minutes, just sitting there looking at the statue. And then after that, she felt calm, like going into her meeting. So I guess, you have to put that question out there because everybody has their own experience of it, but yeah.
No, I appreciate that. I think that also goes back to what David said about the difference between artwork like this and having statues that are up on plinths that we can't touch, we can't interact with. And they're looking down on us. They're sort of like this foreboding perspective. I'd open it up to you guys. Do you have any questions for the panel, but also do you have any memories about experiencing or interacting with Sanctuary Cafe? Does anybody have anything they'd like to add? Don't be shy. Yes, ma'am. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Aloha. How is everyone? Everyone okay? Wonderful. As a user of RM UK, I just felt the need to say something. I feel really blessed to have had, I don't want to get very sure, I feel really blessed to have had the help of Rastafari Movement UK to be able to be struggling but have comfort foods, things that remind you of home, someone to talk to. If I needed anything, honestly, they would try and help and assist any way that they can. So I'm truly grateful, and I can appreciate this even more because I can imagine when, Stella has got this beautiful energy about her that is very inviting and warm, and being able to have something of someone who is warm and inviting in the community that is here, like you said, giving the roses to people while they're here, I think it's just such a beautiful, wonderful thing. So yes, I just personally want to say thank you, Stella, thank you, RM UK, for everything, and I'm just excited for the future.
Thank you, thank you. Anybody else have a question, comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I was born in Lewisham Hospital. It's not a question for the panel. I just wanted to share a little story about Lewisham. Lewisham in 1973, so a lot of you might have been here in 1973. Just a few years before the Battle of Lewisham, I know there was a lot of conflict out and about in Lewisham at that time. So I was born in Lewisham Hospital in 1973 to Tony and Vivian, and they weren't able to keep me. So I was taken to Orpington in Kent, where I was fostered for a while.
Keep going, go on.
Yeah.
So it's just a short story. I'll keep it short. Oh, I thought it was a happy story.
Go on.
So after a short time, I was adopted. It's your sculpture that's inspired me. So can you hold that for a minute? I grew up in East Anglia, in a fenland farming village. Flatlands, fields, cabbages and turnips and pig farms and apple orchards and sugar beet and a lot of mud. It's quite a long way from the village. So in some ways, for my adoptive family, my story began then. But there's a little bit of the story just before that. It's like when you write on a paper and then you rub it out. And there's still those faint lines there, so the story that's there. And that's the story that I just wanted to say, just so that it didn't disappear from Lewisham in 1973. I don't want to say anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Can you tell me your name again? Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. And thank you, Sister Stella. Does anybody else have anything to share that they'd like to share, or questions for the panel? Any stories about Lewisham? Yes, sir. Come forward.
Hello, hi. I'm Disciple Samuel. I'm the independent Lewisham Borough BME officer and the former officially paid Lewisham Borough BME officer. I'm part of Stella's team for the First Love Community Radio. My comment is just a compliment to what you're doing, Richard, and obviously in combination with Stella. So I went to Adian Stanhope School in the 90s. And if I just say the name Ruddock, you may be aware of the name. So her dad died in 1981, isn't it? And we were born in that year. So let's just say that I think I've learned, 30 plus years later, that when someone in school is very challenging, I'm talking about a female here, and is a female that can take on any man, fight anything. But 30 years later now, I'll just say Jay, but it's Ruddock's daughter. I now know why certain people go through things in school, because her dad died in that fire. So I want to basically break down the trauma. So Jay's dad died in a fire on New Cross Road, and we went to Adian Stanhope on the same road. So you can imagine, she went to school for 5 years? And her dad died the year we were born on the same road. So I'm just saying that, like, the work Stella does with RM UK, mental health and well-being, and we do all the training, that sometimes it's like people need to pause when people are so wild and erratic and like a female. Why is she a tomboy? Why does she fight men? Because she had no dad. So I just want to say, Richard, as you know me personally, that it's a small world. I went to Cummin Up, I ate food, I met Richard. Richard became a father figure to me, introduced me to Stella and First Love. I'm now on the community radio, and now you're starting a foundation. And I have a school friend who was going through so much for many years. So please, for all those that I've heard today, please, the New Cross Fire Foundation, all of us from Lewisham, let's support it, because the people that died, their family are still suffering trauma till today. So thank you, New Cross Fire Foundation.
Your name is? Say it again.
Disciple Samuel.
How can we find you? What's your organization?
Go to Stella, yeah?
Thank you. Yes, of course.
Thank you, Disciple Samuel. May I just mention Patricia once again, because Patricia was best friends with Yvonne Ruddock and assisted her in planning the party. This is how deep it goes, and Patricia's there. And of course, Patricia, she's so humble in herself, she won't speak. So I just thought I'd mention that. So, and again, Patricia's a director like myself, as well as Wayne Haynes, who's a survivor, but was he went through some horrific injuries and is here. And then you might say, it's a community interest company, so you might say our CEO, Gary Collins, he lost his brother, the fire as well. So there's the four of us. So it's certainly not me individually, but I'll also say that the morning of, and I'm going to be, because we can be grandstanding here, and I think Patricia and I shared a conversation, so I almost frame what I'm going to say differently now, in that just trying to lighten up, like Stella, 15 years old, and there's three of us walking from the podium. Now, anyone who knows the podium, that's a nightclub at Vauxhall. What were we doing there at 15 years old? But having walked that morning from Vauxhall, and we would call it trodders. So, right, you were walking, and it was the done thing. So at that hour of the morning, it wouldn't be uncommon to see groups of boys and girls or whatever walking from parties. This is how we used to do it in our culture. And so we'd walked from Vauxhall, and we got down to the Marquest at New Cross, and we were most boys were attached to sound systems. We were providing our own entertainment. And we all had one, even if it was just our bedroom. We would give it a name and glorify it. Well, I was involved in one we call Symphony. And Wayne Haynes, who I just mentioned, he was involved in Gemini. That was another sound. So when we got down to the Marquest, we knew that there was a party going on, because most of us knew, we were ear to the ground, and we'd always like a party, and you wouldn't necessarily be invited. Well, very rarely was I ever invited. It's the truth. But such was the love. And so we knew it was going on, and a friend of ours, while I was walking, my friend's brother came round the corner quite quickly in his Cortina Mark III 1600, and if anyone wants to cast their minds back to then, that was the sort of, the 1600E was the thing, and so I wouldn't pass the left, I said, no, I've walked 3 miles. I've got another 3 miles to go to get to Catford. And, I'm not. But why I say that, because I was told very early on that, and this business about grandstanding, in the widest context, as I was told, I might say, in Gallenton, I was down there, I was out there the morning and all this lot. It was 4 o'clock in the morning and the fire took place a little later. But I have to mind how I frame that, because those who were there didn't want to be there retrospectively of all what's going on. Some people might mention, the fire, I was down there, I was this, that, and they grandstand. And it becomes very insensitive. So I'm very cautious now how I speak, that the trauma presents itself even today in many different ways, many facets, and in many strata of society too, because there are some who've managed to really compartmentalize and continue with their lives. And Stella mentioned the conversation we had a little while ago, and it still evokes emotion. Still, obviously it does, but deep emotion. Stella and I were on the phone and in tears. We're just having a chat, which developed into this. So I'm feeling humbled now that I was approached, and that with little credibility I have in my position as an, I'm the kind of outreach guys. These guys are doing all the work. I just talk a lot. That's where I'm good. So I'm essentially the outreach director, and engagement, I think, is the official title, the engagement director. The idea, it's an umbrella organization and it's all-inclusive. So ultimately, anyone who has anything they want to run with, that's it. Come. If it's for the benefit of humanity, come. Write up a plan. Do something. Because our organization is national, it will be national and global. So all of the uprising things, the trilogy you saw on the television, that's all part of it. That's all part of it. We are deeply involved with that production team, or those others, should I say, before I even got there. So there's lots of awareness, and again, we seek to empower. We want people to feel empowered and be a door they can walk through, much like this space. Just come through and engage, with us, and bring what you have to fruition, and we will assist you in that. That's as simple as it is. We're just a conduit. We're a simple conduit for people to present themselves to, and yes, the group is very well connected, and then we'll do all the necessary to see that the project you have in mind and the help you want to benefit the community with will come to fruition. And that's all we're here to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. I want to ask Sister Irena a question, but can you tell us when you launch, what we can look forward to? Or is there anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, the official launch hasn't taken place as yet, but there will be community discussions. We're planning at least 4 of them, where I will be feeding people. So that's the carrot, amongst other things, yeah. So we'll lay on a good spread each time, and we'll be going at various places in the borough, literally north, south, east, and west, and giving everyone an opportunity to feed in to what we're about and to formally present ourselves and what we're about in a more long format. And each of the directors will obviously then speak for themselves.
Thank you, Richard. Sister Irena, I'd like you to bring it back to the borough and some of the work you've done supporting people towards positive mental health, and maybe talk about some of the things you're doing now and some of the services that exist. We talked the other day about the difficulties people have navigating the system, and I guess that's sort of an open-ended question for you.
Yeah, some of the work that I've done was within mental health services. One of them was within ISIS. ISIS was a mental health organisation supporting people within the black community to, manage their mental well-being, really. They were running support groups, they were running women's groups, men's groups, drop-in services, and really helping people through quite difficult times. So I done some volunteer work with some of the women's groups. They were putting together a book on domestic abuse, their personal experiences. So they were doing all the work, really. I was on the fringes, helping them to kind of do some wording from my experience of writing as well. I was running quite a few women's groups around the borough. And because in 1983, I actually founded the first miscarriage support network in South London, I've experienced quite a lot of miscarriages myself, and there wasn't enough support around at all for anyone. So I started a support network. I was holding monthly meetings for people that have experienced loss and going out to visit women that have gone through that situation and couples that have gone through that, and just talking with them and helping them to have a better relationship with their medical team so that they can go on and perhaps have more hope in the future for their families. And it just really went on and on. I was supporting young mothers groups as well, helping them to understand how to help their children learn and learn while they were learning. So I was working within the creches of those groups, and as well as the mothers as well. And some of the mothers have had miscarriages or was having difficulty communicating with their children, so I would work with them on a one-to-one basis. And it just continued all over the place, really. People were calling me left, right, and centre, asking me to help them to apply for funding for a small project or a small organisation, or helping the management committee to understand their roles and responsibilities. And I loved doing that because at the time, my marriage had broken down. My youngest son wasn't even 2 yet, and I was left to bring up 7 children on my own. Yes, that was big. And I just finished a combined honours degree in university. I know, it's a lot. I decided I was going to do that because although I was helping in the community, I didn't really have the qualification, whatever that means. You know, you go for certain jobs, you need the qualification, but really it's the experience that counts. So I went to college and done that. So with my husband leaving, I know that I now wasn't able to go out to work. So who's going to look after all my children? How am I going to afford it? So I wanted to keep my skills going. So that's why I worked in the community, done it around my children. But there were times when I was feeling low and I went through depression. I felt really empty and all the different things that a lot of people feel. So I spontaneously wrote my experiences when the children went to bed or whatever was happening. I just spontaneously typed all these experiences and sent it off in emails to some friends. And one particular friend said to me, "When are you going to write your next chapter?" And I said, "Chapter?" She said, "You know, I print out what you send to me at work and I read it before I go to sleep." I said, "Why are you doing that?" She said, "It is a book you're writing, isn't it?" I said, "No, this is deep, this is personal, you can't be doing that." She said, "You do it, you type out, you print out everything you sent to me, pull it in date order and read it yourself." And I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't believe that I've written these things, poems and everything, prayers, all kinds of things I wrote. So I did put it in order, and another friend of mine gave me a contact for a mental health survivors publisher, and that these publishers are around. It's a mental health survivors publisher, also a publisher that deals with people that are carers or gone through any kind of trauma. And I just sent him a little synopsis. He just started his publishing company, and he said he's very interested in the rest of this book, and I was shocked. I thought, I don't know if I want people to really read my personal stuff. Anyway, it took a long time, but when he sent me the first draft of my book, I was shocked. I didn't want it to go out. I felt ashamed. I felt so many things, because it's 8 months worth of an autobiographical account of 8 months of my life, just doing whatever I'm doing with my children, whatever spontaneous emotion that come up for me, that's what I wrote. And I'll show you, because it's got a picture of me on the front, and from the time I saw the picture, I thought, no, I can't let people see me. This is it. It's called Love is a Spider's Web by Queen Irena. And it really gives an account of the issues and the emotions and the feelings that I was going through while bringing up my children and working in the community, because I was doing everything around my children. And people thought I was crazy. How could I do these things? And I said, well, love is like a spider's web because it goes in so many different directions, and everything is about love. Even if you feel hatred, it comes from love, you know. It comes from there. And I've been trying so many different things, so many different ways to manage. And part of me felt that I didn't want people to see that I failed. I didn't want my children to be taken from me. So many different things, because it could happen. You know, how could you bring up 7 children on your own? If someone was to say that to me now, I couldn't do that. But I had to do it, and I done it. You know, the father wasn't involved at all, didn't financially help me, physically help me, emotionally help me. But there were men, I made sure I placed men in my life that my children could aspire to. So, although there were men living in my house, I don't know what people thought, but but I had positive relationships with some of these men, and at least they instilled something in my boys, because it's 6 boys and 1 girl. And although it still wasn't perfect, there were issues with my twins. I had a lot of issues with them, and it was to do with their father not being around. So I had to kind of swallow my pride and force my children on their father. Even though he said he doesn't want to see them, I would pack them all up, bring them to him, and go away for the weekend and say, I'm not around. I just went away for the weekend, and eventually he cooked for them and he got to really enjoy them. And that was really hard for me because I was very angry. But at the same time, it was very hard to hold that back and not let the children see too much of that. I'm sure they felt something, but I tried really hard to not let them see too much, because it's important for them to have a relationship with their father. I know that's important, and especially for a black man, because there's so many stereotypes of black men, and he was only one of them that wasn't behaving well. Do you understand? That doesn't mark all black men. So I know that we're growing 6 boys. I had to show them that he was worth something, you know. So with all of that, that's why I started to write, and all the different feelings that come up. So when the book came out, I was approached by quite a lot of people to help with support groups. So there's issues of Rastafari. There's, you know, it's quite a controversial book as well, because we talk about sex in there as well. You know, there's prayers, there's positive aspirations for women, for men, for boyfriends, girlfriends, families. We talk about step-parenting, abuse, issues with police. There's so many different areas that it covers, you know, but in the main, it's love that's going all the way through, you know.
I've got one more question. I'm just conscious of time. Before I ask this final question, does anybody else have any stories about Lewisham? Any questions for the panel? Anybody want to share anything for our group? Anything at all? Yes, you can. I've got a question for you, Richard, but go ahead.
Just a quick one. I've realized we're moving into that season called Christmas, and one of the things coming up my company has done for this will be the 14th year, God willing, is we throw our doors open in Catford. In fact, it's now coming up in hand partnership with Taste So Good, which is one of my daughters, my second daughter. This was something I started 14 years ago, just the family. And why I'm going through this story is that I wanted to demonstrate to our children, 6 of them, that Christmas wasn't about self. It wasn't all about self. It was about sharing, and there's more reward in giving and that was the lesson. That was the life lesson I wanted to teach. So we would give up our Christmas day and we'd cook, and we'll literally throw the doors open and invite the community in. And every year there's a story. Every year there's a story of one sort or other. So moving forward, Venice, who now owns and runs the Catford store, is continuing that, and we're working together. And she now supports the community by offering food and having food available, cans and the rest, every Friday outside that store. That's the manifestation of something we started, and it's really beautiful to see. So this Christmas Day, the 25th, it's open to everybody, as I say. We pack, even during COVID. I mean, I think we did just over 250 meals that day, and that was packing and sending out. That wasn't even those who came by, because we were in the kitchen and we've got a back door, and we had people packing and sending out the back, and we were sending on to hostels. Apparently they had issues with chefs, 3 of them in the area for whatever reason, and they called me and they wanted to pay. And I said, no. Just let me know the numbers and we'll do it. And they sent a couple of people down and they were packing, and one car came and they loaded them and they went, and another one, and this was all Lewisham Borough. And it's really, really nice. But one of the stories I'd like to share quickly is that around the beginning of December, we stick a banner up, and that banner says basically, if you're welcome to come and have a meal if things are tight, if you're lonely. So we get lots of, I'm sorry, I'm going about the place, but we get people who ask to get involved. And I never turn anyone down, because I said, it's not just about food. What's happened over the years, relationships have been forged. Conversations are struck up. That period of the year is very dark for many people. And I wouldn't know, you wouldn't know, one wouldn't know if the conversation you strike up stops somebody from committing suicide the next week. That's how deep it is. 3 people saw that banner when I put it up at the beginning. And I could see they came in right at the beginning, a pair of sisters and a male, and they said for the last, how many years? 20 years, I remember her saying, that they'd been institutionalized. They just go AWOL, drink and whatever else, and they kind of put them up for their own good, I think, more than anything else. But I could see that they'd made an effort, a bit of lippy, and they'd made a bit of an effort. And during the course of the afternoon, she called me to one side, and as some, thank you. And I said, no, don't worry about it. No, look. He said, for 20 years, we've been she and her sister they've been institutionalized, and we passed your shop and we saw the banner, and she said it gave us something to look forward to. I mean, how deep is that? She said it gave us something to look forward to, and they came and spent the day. So for that reason alone, they'd broken a cycle and saw that there was still, they're human, and there were still people who was concerned about humanity. So again, the 25th, just spread the word. Anyone who wants to come down, whether they're working in the hospital, whether they're a patient, because we can't get away from deprivation and need. And certainly we should look to those in Lewisham first, because those are the ones we pass. So if it's just one day we can afford to give up that time of some sort and say, hey, look, there's this restaurant. Because the others say to me, well, why don't other people do it? I said, I don't know, but wouldn't it be so nice if every restaurant opened their doors Christmas Day and we all had the choice of what we'd like to eat and go to some of those, places we might not have even considered beforehand. So just to say, so that's what we do on Christmas Day. The doors are open. It starts at 1 o'clock, end at 6. We've had steel band players down. We've had people who've come in and, they just bring parcels here, hand this out. And one year there was some fancy soap, and I thought they came from Selfridges or something. And I thought, I'd like one of these myself. It was in a tin, I've not, and so I, Googled it, and it was like just short of £10 for one bar of soap. And I was like, whoa. And then you get others who might pop into Primark and other places and just leave a bag of clothes. We've got another group who came by and gave us loads of toiletries, male and female, just bags already kitted up. So people just could come in, those street drinkers, those who are homeless, and just have dignity. Just have no conversation. Just have something to eat if you like. And one of the things we always want to happen as much as possible is that people are seated and we serve on them. I think that's very important. And one of the lessons I learned was that Those who have dogs, because I said, well, no, sit down and eat. And he goes, oh, no, it's all right. But another told me, I didn't realize at the time, these are the lessons, and that these individuals didn't want to sit inside the restaurant because their dogs would be outside. And that's their companion. So we said, fine, no problem. No problem. We grabbed a few tables quickly, ran them outside, and the volunteers don't like me to do anything anyway. They say, no, you keep, we'll do it. So that's it. The roll came out, the glitter, the fans fixed up a few tables, improvised dog bowls. We said, there you go. And we served them outside, and the dogs were there. So it's just little things like that, little touches that you learn as you go along. So anyway, thank you again.
Thank you, Richard. I've got one last question for the four of you. I can't count. I'm going to start with you, David. A lot of what we're talking about in terms of Lewisham stories and stories of our lives and preserving these stories and starting initiatives, I wanted to see if you could speak about any advice that you would give to somebody that might have a small idea or a story that they want to preserve, or a piece of artwork or artistic practice, or a business idea. And what do you do? What do we need to know? What does it take? How do you spend the time, whether it's evenings or things like that? I'd like to start with David on that, and then go around with the four of you before we close. Thank you.
Okay, Jason, yeah, thank you. Well, I can only, I guess, relate it back to Sanctuary Cafe, which was an idea I had in conversation with a friend 3 or 4 years ago, and then that conversation went on to the Lewisham Liberty Festival committee, and then that conversation led to a conversation with the person who suggested Stella as the model. And so these conversations went on, and it got deeper and deeper into Lewisham, and the project took off and came to fruition just by opening up conversations, really. And I think that's probably the theme. The whole piece is about conversations. It's about sitting down with your fellow humanity, as Richard was saying, and having a meal or a cup of coffee and a conversation. So I think that's really all I've got to say on the subject. It's just talking to people about art and about projects and about ideas, and they will happen.
Thank you. Queen Irena?
I'm now a social prescriber in a local doctor's surgery, and it comes under Lewisham Alliance. So doctors and nurses and health visitors and district nurse perhaps will refer patients to me that need support to link with their local services or support groups or volunteer services that's around. So I have a unique opportunity to have a one-to-one with these people, get to know them and what kind of areas they're interested in or what kind of support they might need. So I can actually link them with those services. But I also go out and visit the services as well, so that I have more of an idea of what might suit people. And because of my different experiences, quite faceted really, I'm able to support people with filling in application forms, whether it's PIP, universal credit, attendance allowance, council tax, blue badge, all of them now. So I can actually sit down with patients that need that kind of support. That I know there's support out there, but sometimes they need more of a personal touch, just to kind of talk more openly about what they're going through, so that I can really pinpoint the words that could be used on the application for them. Yeah? So that helps as well, and just getting to know more of what is out there in the community. And because I've done work in the community, I can at least support them to be in touch with those organisations. And I would also like to say to people that once you've had any kind of experience that you feel might help empower somebody else, write it down. Write it down, because we are the heroes right now. In years to come, our children's children will be looking at people like us. So leave something written down, even if it's a poem. We can all do it. We all write reports and whatever we do, we do that already. You know, so try and do it to leave for somebody, even if it's somebody that's going through something, you can give them pointers as to this is how you can perhaps address this issue. It's worked for me, I've passed it on, it's worked for somebody else, this is what I'm giving to you. Please try and write something down.
I'd like to go to Richard next and then finish with, actually, David, can you hand Richard your microphone? And then finish with Sister Stella, please. Just any advice about starting something, starting a business, getting people together, organizing?
Well, this is can you hear me? All right. I need this particularly anyway. But as I've encouraged my children, who I'm very fortunate now to say they've got brands of their own. That's going from Brighton to Lewisham and now into Lambeth. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't worry about red tape. And this, I shouldn't go on record saying this actually. You know, don't worry about your taxes and worry about your taxes, but don't let that inhibit an idea, because many have come to me and said, "Oh yeah, but what about this and that?" And I said, "No, you focus on what you know you're good at and the service or the offer you want to make. That's what's important, because everything else is professional. Everything else, professional services, particularly in the Borough of Lewisham, are very supportive, and they should tap into that resource that they have in the local authority at Lawrence House. I've interacted, you know, and I'm very fortunate in that I'm a caterer, and it's even when Salon was doing the strategy meeting, their strategy meeting, I catered hundreds of them just a few weeks ago. When Hilda was doing her event in the mental health thing in the Civic Suite, I was involved. A couple of days ago, I did 400 people at the FA in Wembley, and that was about black women and the women in sport and who was around. And there was a play which was commissioned and performed by one of the individuals. Was Again We Roar, it was called. And so this was all around football. And it just so happens I learned that the Hope Powell, the first black captain of England, my cousin. And that was so odd, because I saw her mother there, and I looked at her, I don't recognize you, whatever else. And then we had a conversation, and that was that. So yes, just keep your focus on what you want to do, because only you know what's best. And look to someone you know who's in that position, who've done it, to help. Don't be afraid. I encourage people to come speak to me. You know, find somebody who, and it doesn't have to be in your field specifically, just somebody who's trod the boards, to give you a little encouragement. So whatever the plan is, tap into the local authority, tap into the resources which are available, and find somebody to mentor you. That's it. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And yes, please, Sister Stella, final word.
I guess I will probably relate it back to the statue again, which is that when David and I were talking about the statue and the colour and the texture, we had this conversation about when I was younger, and our family was really poor, and in those days, there was no central heating. We'd wake up in the morning in the bedroom and you'd scrape the ice off of the inside of the window, you know. And so, and there was lino on the floor. And, you know, I used to sort of go downstairs and remember the gas fires? Turn the gas fire on, lie down in front of the gas fire and dream. Just dream and think, oh, you know, I need to do something really big. I need to do something that is going to leave its mark, and I need to do something that is going to be remembered in 100 years' time, you know. And And so just relating it back to that statue, when we talked about the texture, I explained to David that I used to look at sand, pile of sand, and I used to think, what can I do? If I was a grain of sand, what is it that I could do that would be recognized, that somebody could actually recognize? Can you imagine a whole pile of sand? How could you recognize one grain of sand? And so then I realized, oh my God, that means I need to do a lot. And I've only got a short space of life. And so I need to do a lot of different things. And so when we talked about the texture of the statue, we talked about, I asked David if it could be grainy. So if anybody touches that statue, you'll notice the texture of it, and the grain represents each one of us as grains of sand, and it's sort of encompassed in the whole of that piece. And so, for me, I would say to people that, think like a grain of sand. Think big and dream. And everything starts off with your dream. I used to dream. I used to be in school and sit at the back of the class, and the teacher used to ignore me. I was having fun because I was dreaming. I was dreaming of all the things that I'm going to do, and like throughout my whole time so far, I've been to Ethiopia. We've got a project in Ethiopia called Shashamane Youth Creation. We've done exhibitions that we've taken to Ethiopia, Jamaica. We've done lots of different things. So you have to have this dream. Think about the end first, the bigger picture of everything, and then start working your way back to yourself and think, well, if this is my dream and it's going to take 10 years, what do I need to do in 5 years' time? What do I need to do in 1 year's time? What do I need to do in 6 months' time? What do I need to do next week? And then there's your plan. And then you just follow your route. And no route is ever going to be the same. And just ask questions. Dare to ask questions. I used to phone up, even when we did the radio station, I just used to phone up the radio authority and say, what do I have to do to get a license? And it just starts off with a question. So just keep asking questions and keep following those routes and making those connections. And I just want to say one more thing, which is in terms of those, like us being like those grains of sand and having a voice and being heard, and I'm aware that, in the audience, there are various different people in the audience, and I would like to, if you don't mind,
of course, yes,
ask you to say something about your campaign.
Can I introduce Rosamund, please? Would you like the mic?
Hi, my name is Rosamund Adoo Kissi Debrah. I've been in Lewisham since 2000, and my children were born in Lewisham Hospital. They also went to Hull Beach, so there's the connection there. And I'm probably, I was just listening to what Stella was saying, and my story sort of follows very similar paths. And I was feeling for you when you were talking, because I was fostered as well. I never do you know what? Public speaking is hard. And a lot of people, they're so interested in my campaign, I kind of get away with not saying so much. And when you were talking, I was thinking, take deep breaths, it will happen. I think my story is kind of unique from the point of view that no matter what happens now, if I die tomorrow, I will always be known for saving millions of lives. And that is quite a hard thing to accept, because the reason for being that way is due to my daughter dying. So if Ella hadn't got ill, if Ella hadn't died, I wouldn't be in that unique situation. And I think when you were talking about trauma, I think the government, the mayor, those authorities in Lewisham, I think they probably don't know how I can wake up and how I can function. Because my trauma went on for not a day or a week, it went on for 28 months. And I guess if you imagine, we are all in the phase right now whereby 3 weeks ago, some people's life changed forever with the atrocities that were going on. And I think people can't imagine children being poisoned and dying. But that happened to me. And my daughter didn't die straight away. It took 28 months of it. And I think what people struggle with is they want you to be angry, that they do. They want you to be a certain way when you're not. And what I have had to overcome, despite what happened to us, is so many barriers along my journey. And Ella remains, sadly, although 7 million people every year die from air pollution, she still remains the only person in the world to have that on her death certificate. And I think when I say that, people look at me oddly like, why is that? Then I always ask people, why do you think that is the case? I say to them, governments are not going to sit there and allow people to start putting air pollution on death certificates so they can sue them for all the injustices and things. I guess if they had their way again, we probably wouldn't have got that verdict, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here now speaking to you. And it was just when Stella was talking about statues, I have so much to thank this borough for, and I always feel guilty because people see me talking on TV, they see me at United Nations, all over the place, and I always think, God, you need to come and talk to your people in Lewisham. But I have never forgotten them, and Lewisham people always let me know they've never forgotten me. When I saw that, when I saw Stella's statue, I thought, God, there's a mural of me in broccoli. And in a way, I'm kind of relieved that it's not around here, so I don't have to get up like you. I don't have to look at it every day, because it's quite humbling and it's quite weird. And I went to do a photo shoot there, and I kept on praying that no car was going to crash, because when you're standing in front of your own mural and the people are driving and they just want to stop and say hi, and you think, oh God, this is just not going to end the way. And there will be a statue, I'm talking about statues being accessible, there will be a statue to Ella, hopefully early next year in Mansfield Park. And the statue will be the size she was. She was 4'7". She was only 9 when she died. And it will be, I hope it's accessible, because I really heard what David said, how statues or art is in museums and they're not accessible. But I hope in Mansfield Park, near the play area, people will be able to interact with her. But I was just sitting there listening to what Stella was saying about making a plan, what you're going to do. I know what I'm doing this afternoon. I definitely know what I'm doing this week at the end of the year, providing the world is stable. I will be going to COP28. Let's wait and see. And my journey will continue. I always need the support of the public, because what I have to do is challenging. It is always up against authorities. And I always say to people, one person can't do it. People always say to me, you always look so humble. They see me in Greggs or in Primark. And I always think, what do people want me to do? Because I do need downtime. And for me, people are laughing, this is my normality. So, people see me and my son in Aldi, and they sometimes look at me twice, or someone will come up to me and go, is that you? I can't believe you're still shopping Aldi. So I say to people, Lewisham keeps me normal, it gives me sanity. I'm grateful people actually leave me alone. They don't treat me like a celebrity, which they shouldn't. But having the support of your local people, there is really nothing like it. And whenever I get a microphone in Lewisham, all I ever say is to thank the public, because they are the ones who continue to vote for me, who support me, who give me the courage, because I was just a normal teacher in the school before all this happened, to keep on going. And I will always, always do my best for my borough and for the UK. And my background is just, I was listening to what people say. I get to go back to Ghana next year, because we have the second air pollution conference with the WHO. It's weird to say that I work for the WHO, but I guess I do. And I will be leading it. And for someone from Lewisham, I know, who was fostered, to end up leading a conference in my motherland, next year is going to be a really huge time for me. But I will find time, because I had a bit of a breakdown earlier in the year, those that know. It's been 10 years this year since Ella died, and there are times when things can get a little bit too much for me, but we will have that celebration to honour her, and we will put a stone on her grave. It's just this year, the 10 years just got a little bit too much for me in the end, but I promise you. And the priest who was going to do it, Caraway, sadly he passed away. So those of you that know, Bishop Caraway passed away. He was meant to lead at a service. So I've got to find another priest to do it. But it's just, thank you for giving me the microphone. It's just an opportunity to say thank you for the people who quietly support me day in and day out.
Thank you, Rosamund. Rosamund, can you tell us where to find your work, how we can follow you?
Yes, I did put some leaflets out. I was notified that the QR code, apparently, if someone's explained to me, it was the free QR code that's expired, but we're sorting that out. Currently, as I speak, we've just got 10,000 signatures. We got them in 9 days, but we're fighting the government to make clean air a human right. We need 100,000 signatures. I think preferably by the end of November. I meet King Charles very soon when I pick up my CBE, and I'm going to ask directly. You always have to take your opportunity in life. I am going to ask him directly to intervene with the government, because from what Mr. Sunak was saying, there's not going to be a general election for another year. What people need to understand is, if you're walking somewhere and you can smell the air, you can taste it on your tongue, then what you need to know is you are breathing in filthy air. I would never lie to you. And air pollution, unfortunately, is linked to so many illnesses, and our community suffers the most because we are the most impacted. We live in houses which are closer to the road, and it's not for those ignorant people who think it's a black and white thing. You know, are you saying that air pollution is just a black people? No, there are white working class people who live next to us on the Brown Hill Road and things, and they are breathing in. Sometimes I only answer the questions that are asked of me. I campaign for clean air for every single human being. I don't, when I go out and I'm arguing for things, I don't say just look at black kids, just look at Asians, I campaign for all. Now, because I am a black woman, people interpret it as I am only campaigning for my community. No, I'm not. Yes, my community is incredibly precious to me, but as a teacher, you are taught that everybody is equal, and that's how I treat everyone who comes across me. And so, for instance, I saw something this morning when the Mayor of London was thanking me for Black History Month and what I'd done. And someone sort of said, where is White History Month? And I thought, you do not deserve an answer for that. Then I thought again, and I actually answered them. And I went, they're just honouring me for my work I'm doing. Go and do a history month if you want. It doesn't really bother me. But the negativity and the infighting, just because the mayor had said congratulations for all my work. And I feel like saying, from a teacher point of view, we do Black History Month because it's not recognised as much in the curriculum. And these young kids need to know their history and where they come from. And that's why we do it. Not to cause division. But unfortunately, as my late father said, you're going to have to continue to educate people to the day you die, sadly. And not everything is about division and nastiness. And a lot of us aren't like that. We love community. We love getting people together. And just because, you know, the Mayor of London is saying congratulations doesn't mean you should put something nasty out there. But that's the society we actually live in now. And those of you who know, I am a twin who also had twins. I just thought, yeah, so your stories were running through me all the time. And I hope when I go and pick up my CBE from the King that I do myself proud, and I don't, because I'm sure the press will be out there. And I hope I remember to, again, thank the people of Lewisham who cultivated a young girl in foster care in Derby to where I'm sitting for today. So you're not alone.
Thank you, Rosamund. I'd like to say thank you to our panelists, to Richard, to David, to Stella, to Queen Irena, to Rosamund. I'd like to say thank you to Ramon and Hannah of Enable for having us in this space. Please note that the space is open throughout the week. I think Thursday through Sunday? Thursday through Sunday? Thursday to Saturday. Monday to Saturday, thank you very much. Tuesday through Saturday. It's here, Lewisham Hospital. I'd like to thank the Borough of Lewisham for supporting this event And you guys have a great afternoon. Thank you very much. Oh, one more thing, sorry. The Sanctuary Cafe is here. We are trying to get it back in the Lewisham Shopping Centre. But if you want to take a picture, please interact with it. It is meant to be interacted with. Please enjoy it for as long as we can. Thank you.